back, and I moved from a 1,200 square foot office in Nashville to a 600 office here. But it's not. It's like a 550. So I'm trying to create some space in here that looks elegant. You know.
But it'll be worth it to see those grandkids.
Yes.
Yes.
Amen.
Yes, I totally get that. Okay. All right, so I'll introduce you if you're ready, and we'll
Yeah,
just
let's
right
go.
in. Okay. Let me make sure that I'm recording on all the things. Okay. Don't want to forget that. That would be a shame.
Recording in progress.
Alrighty. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm super excited to dig into this masterclass style training because I am here with Jim Padilla. Now, he is the founder and CEO of Game Edge, which is a done-for-you provider of industry-leading sales systems and unicorn sales professionals, which he co-leads with his wife and entrepreneurial partner in crime, Cindy Padilla. Through their unique blend of laser-targeted selling systems, inspirational team-building expertise, and over 60 years of combined sales experience, Jim and his wife have generated over $100 million in sales for a long line of high-level visionary entrepreneurs. It's why over the last near decade, Jim has become the online education industry's go-to expert on launching high-ticket sales, live events, and one-to-many scaling. So of course we had to have him here to talk to us about how to streamline, systematize, and scale, and to do it masterfully. So Jim, we're so excited that you're here with us. We can't wait to dig into your topic.
Adrienne, thanks so much for having me, and really excited. I've been looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, yeah. Now I know, whether you're brand new in business or whether you're working on scaling to six-figure months or multiple six-figure months, everyone loves the idea of scaling, of growing, and so I can't wait to dig into this topic because if you're learning it ahead of time, you can set the stage far in advance mentally. You can plan things out the right way rather than having to clean up messes, which I know you see a lot.
Yes.
Or whether you're further along and this is kind of perfectly timed for you, this is going to be perfect for everyone. But before we dig into all the good stuff, just in case someone is meeting you for the first time, do you want to tell us just a little bit about your story and how did you find yourself in this space of being an expert on sales systems, sales teams, and organizational design?
So, yeah, I'm going to go back to childhood just because it's relevant. I was born to teenage parents a very long time ago, 5 decades ago, and my dad took off immediately, and as a 16, 17-year-old kid, and my mom responded with a very challenging situation. She responded with a lot of rage, anger, and fear, and so a lot of that landed right here on me, and it was a very abusive environment, and ended up in foster care at 13, and in gangs and streets at 16, and in jail by 19. And it's all, if you imagine spending every single day, every waking moment, learning how to read the room, to master the environment so that you could bend people's will to your direction because you didn't want them to see you as a threat. You needed them to see you as an ally because that's the only way that I could stay safe. And whether it was, how do I make my mom an ally? How do I help? I thought I was doing something really wrong. So I was like, how do I make her not see me as a threat? When you're on the streets, when you're in jail, same thing is how do I make myself an asset and an ally to this environment so that I become needed? And little did I know that, you fast forward 20 years on the road and I make millions of dollars teaching other people how to influence the room, read the room, bend the will, and influence to your direction so that people would see you as an ally and not as a threat. And that's what you need to be in business, especially in sales, is you need to be an ally for people so that they don't see you as a friction piece. They see you as a means to an end to get the things that they need. So, I started teaching that in sales training years ago. I've been a lifelong entrepreneur. I had alarm sales businesses. I had offices in 3 cities of door knockers and a phone room supporting them, and we were out banging doors, selling alarm systems. And then I would, jump into mortgage in early 2000s until that went bust in 2008, largely because a lot of things I was doing inappropriately. And then, people didn't need mortgages, but they still needed to know how to sell. So I jumped in and started teaching people how to sell. But I was making sales. I spent the first couple of decades of my life selling for what I needed. because I was trying to take care of me. And then I learned after putting some people in very bad situations because of the mortgage situation. I put people in loans they didn't belong in, and I ruined some people's lives. And I had to start recognizing that I need to use my powers for good and not evil. And I had to start stripping away the things that left me feeling slimy and awful, and started leaving me feeling good and leaving other people feeling served. And that was 2008. And the rest has been a crazy wild ride. And in 2013, I met an entrepreneur named Bill Barron, who was one of the smartest people I've ever met, and an emerging rock star at the time. And he was getting ready to do his first 7-figure launch, and he wanted sales support. He didn't want us to come in and train his people, so he said, "Can you provide sales support?" And we said, "Sure." Like a good entrepreneur, I had no clue what a launch was. I had no clue how to pull all this together, but I got Jeff Walker's launch book, read it in a weekend, hired a bunch of 12 of my buddies and clients and said, "Hey, let's go make a bunch of money on this launch." And 17 days later, we had an incredible, wildly successful train wreck of a launch that was $1.6 million. And a week later, there was a line at the door, and we became the go-to expert for launches and events. And we spent the next 2 years delivering nothing but launch support, sales support for events. And that just became a massive, wild hit. And then people started wanting us to stick around between launches and events and start selling for them more. So we said, sure, let's figure out how to do that too. And then, here we are, 8 years later, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of sales later. And, we're most loved and well-respected sales experts in the game. And it's been all by God's choosing and doing, because if I had to choose all this and do it ahead of time, I probably wouldn't have done it. And everything we figured out, we did on accident. But it's been incredible.
I'll be honest, I kind of have goosebumps right now hearing that story. Like, holy cow! So first of all, God works in mysterious ways. It's really incredible. A lot of people would look at your early story and just see like the terrible story that it is. Like, I'm so sorry those things happened to you, but also it's part of what made you so wickedly emotionally intelligent and able to read a room and able to understand the dynamics of everything going around you, and you chose to see it as an asset.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
A lot of other people would choose to see that as all the reasons why I can't possibly succeed. But
Yeah.
you were like, hey, this is an asset. I have some skills here. And maybe you didn't see it right away, but eventually. Right?
Well, and it built this. You could say Teflon. Some people say Teflon. Some people would just call it, this indestructible nature about me. That, it's like you just start getting in tune with reality. It's like, look, I'm a living, walking example of that which doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. And as long as you're standing on the right side of the grass today, you still got work to do. And that's what's really been a big part of this journey. And something even in my youth, couldn't put my finger on it, but I was a bad kid. But I never blamed my environment. It was because I chose to be a bad kid, right? So, and it was never, well, I grew up in a rough place and my mom abused and I'm this and that. None of that. Yeah. And all the way along, there was this feeling inside that even though I was doing wrong, I knew I shouldn't. I was ashamed of it, but I just didn't know what else to do. I still was like, no, this is the path I'm on. So,
But it's never too late to change your path. And
totally.
Boy, did you. And you found yourself in a situation that frankly would scare the pants off a lot of people. If someone's saying, hey, help me have a 7-figure launch, and you're going, let me go figure out what a launch is, right?
Yeah.
But you saw opportunity, and you knew you had some skill sets, and you knew you had some things to bring to the table, and instead of running the other way, you leaned in.
Yes.
I love that.
Very much so. And it's, everybody watching this, listening, we all have something similar. It doesn't have to be some rags to riches overcomer story, but as an entrepreneur, opportunities are made from the problems that present themselves. And that's just been my DNA from the time I could walk, and now it's something that we really lean into on purpose. It's like everything that's going on in the world is, whether it's, it's creating fear and doubt and anxiety and all these challenges, but all of that is not reason to run for cover or circle the wagons. This is time to really lean in and press in and figure out, how do I solve problems? And then the moment you can solve a problem, if you do it once, you can do it twice. And if you do it twice, you can do it 10 times. So too many times people wait to like quote unquote scale their business, and that's an overused term right now. But
Very.
it's scaling. I want you to think about this differently. Scale is about units. Scale means how can I plug on more parts? Growth is about zeros. Scale is about units, growth is about zeros. You don't necessarily need to scale to grow strategically and make more revenue and provide more impact. So it can be part of the formula and often is, but not always, right? So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today too.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think it's one of those buzzwords that people were trying to find out, how do I explain what it is I'm trying to do? I'm trying to grow, but I get your definition. That completely makes sense. And I imagine whether it was that first launch you helped with, or as you started moving towards people saying, hey, can you just stick with us even in between launches? Hey, can you help us do this next bigger thing? I mean, every step of the way, the structure of your team, how you delivered your deliverables, the manner in which you did it, like obviously there's only one gym, you can only be in so many places, right? But yet you're providing these amazing high quality services to all these other entrepreneurs. How, and I know you recommend this consult and advise model as opposed to the typical growth or scaling model. Tell us a little bit, when you say consult and advise, what do you mean by that?
So there is, I'm going to be careful not to say this because one of my pet peeves is when people say, this is contrarian or this is controversial, and then they say, let somebody else tell you it's contrarian. But most people teach master something first, then outsource it, or master something and then grow it. I tend to go the opposite. Once you've done it once, you've proven it can be done. So now immediately start looking for how else can it be done in a way that you can do more of them. So that if I can do one, I can do two. If I'm going to do a meeting, it's like this. I could meet you and I one-on-one, or I happen to know that this is a leveraged conversation because you and I are talking and we have a bunch of friends with us who are watching in, right?
Or we could be live streaming this to 10 places at once.
Correct.
There's lots of ways where we could
Correct.
have more leverage.
And so, I had this thing where, a lot of times we grow through stages of business and growth. And what I did, just from an early age, I didn't want to let go of everything. So when I left my alarm company, I sold my piece of it so that I still had a piece of it. And then when I was in mortgage, now mortgage was different because we kind of shut down the whole thing because it blew up on us. But every time I've been in a business opportunity, it's like, how can I have a tail on it? Like everything, when we're creating revenue packages and consulting with people on that, I want you to always be thinking about how can you get paid in advance, how can you get paid ongoing, and how can you get paid beyond the opportunity. It doesn't mean every single opportunity is going to present that, but if you're not thinking that way, you'll never find those opportunities. And so we're always like, there's always some sort of investment up front, there's always some sort of ongoing component, and then there's always when this sells, we'll get a piece, or when this comes about, we'll be able to have peace, or like with our, we commissions ongoing. So there's always something there, and every business has a way to do that. That I promise you, we can help you find it. But start thinking that way all the time, and then start thinking about how can you continue to be part of it. So that we did sales training for years. Well, I got tired of sales training, so then we stopped doing it. And then what we've done then was we've now re-engaged it, but now we have somebody else doing it. So we're still doing it. It's like we've put in all this time, effort, energy, work, process, systems, strategies, programs. Why just put it on the shelf when someone else can be benefiting from it? I just don't want to do it anymore. So now we have somebody else in it. And so from the consult advise perspective, what we're doing is, okay, what's the solution that we're providing here? What is the one part of it that I have to do? And then what's the rest of it that I can have somebody else do? And then I can just consult and advise there. So what we do, like with our sales training division, right? We have a partner in this, and so we have built our adaptive conscious sales conversations, and that is partnered with somebody else running it, right? We consult, advise, they leverage our resources and our team. We roll. We have an epic events division, so we deliver 6 and 7 figure events for people, strategy and offers, and put salespeople in place and deliver them. But we have a manager, a world-class, incredible manager. Doesn't even begin to describe who she is. She's our events director, and she's amazing, Danielle. But she runs that. She's the operator of it. So we're not. right? It's our systems and our strategies, but she's there to leverage all of it. And we just consult and advise, and then we take percentage of everything, right?
Yeah.
Same thing on our outsourced sales division. We've brought in partners who deliver and oversee the operation of it. But we are the face of it, we're the brand, and we bring people in, and then we consult and advise. And we have a consulting division, and everything we do, same thing. It's like I would recommend everybody start looking from that perspective. Doesn't mean you have to set up separate companies, but start thinking of every offer you make as its own division, and how can that offer run without you, or only leverage you to places that you're needed.
So you have all these divisions essentially with, for lack of a better word, a general manager overseeing each one.
Right.
Where the heart of what's happening in that division came from your mind, it's your strategy, it's your systems, it's, it's something you've proven. But as quickly as possible, you get someone else in charge of it, running it, operating it. So your level of involvement then is simply consulting and advising that general manager who now takes over.
Yeah, that's the goal. And the beauty of it, though, is it doesn't have to necessarily be something that we created. Could have been just something that we inspired, or something that we know is valuably needed for the clients that we serve, or for one of the markets that we're in. So then we could bring somebody in who provides that solution, even though we never did. But we now partner with them, and it is a combined solution that they're offering under our umbrella. And again, we are partners in this opportunity, and we consult, advise, but they're the full operator of this opportunity.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so you have a lot of partnerships built in as well.
Amen.
Like affiliate relationships, that kind of thing.
Yeah, partnership is one of our core values, and the way we define partnership is two people combining their resources to serve the people we care about in common. And so it's not about JV swaps and you email my list and I'll email yours. It's where do you fit in the life cycle of our clients in our world, and how do we make sure that you're positioned as the person. If you're saying, hey, here's my friend Adrienne, you guys go figure it out, that's a referral, and there's nothing wrong with referrals. Please refer people, take care of business.
Yeah.
But there's a big difference than when I say, okay, client, Mr. Client, this is the next step of growth for you. You're going to work with Adrienne for this reason, and this is why we brought her in. So that's way different than a referral. You're embedded as part of the life cycle in the journey of our clients.
Yeah.
Right? So now you are exponentially growing, leveraging other people's expertise, not having to be yours, right? Yet you're still making profit on the deal.
Yeah. So, which is a totally different model versus what I'm accustomed to seeing in the market, where people talk about, okay, you have your front end operations, you have your back end operations, and that's about it.
Right.
Right? It's a completely
Yeah, well, and then the difference is, I think bottom line, guys, we're not trying to make anybody wrong here. I mean, there's stages of growth, and at some place you have to learn how to run a business before you can, go beyond it. But I want you to start thinking about what is coming beyond that. And one of those key components is being able to understand that you have a future value of what you're doing. And so if you're always thinking about what's the future value of the problem that I'm solving, of the solution that I'm bringing, of this opportunity, then you're always going to be thinking about the default thought process is going to be, who else can do this, or how else can it be done better, instead of what can I do. And so if you're just doing a front end, back end, you're almost always stuck in transaction mode. And transaction's great because you need to eat today, but you'll never get beyond eating today.
Yeah. You'll never get the true growth you desire with the level of freedom that you're looking for.
Correct. And so you're always going to be in a place where you're going to have to worry about the next transaction. And so I want to put in front of you and into your mind the opportunity that exists by thinking about exponential growth right from the beginning. You don't have to be a multi-billion-dollar company to be able to scale and be able to have leverage for yourself. If you start thinking about it right away, then you'll start finding ways to solve it. It's all just about the questions that you ask yourself. If you ask myself, where can I get another client? Then all you're ever going to be doing is looking for clients. If I can figure out how can I do this better, how can this be delivered better, how can I get an exponential return on this, then you start seeking different solutions, different partners, different ways of thinking. And then all of a sudden, those ideas come up. I'm not the most creative guy. I'm far from it. I just ask myself a lot of questions, and I'm extremely curious.
Well, and I love that analogy because, it's like, imagine the house, like someone builds a small, modest house. and then they outgrow it. So they have to put an addition on. And you all know, if anyone who's done any construction, the minute you add an addition that wasn't originally there, the floor is a little funny, like the walls aren't perfectly square, like it's not quite right, it's good enough, you know. Add addition after addition after addition, pretty soon you have a pretty cobbled together house. Versus if you thought ahead to that 4,000 square foot house from the very beginning and designed it that way from the very beginning and simply added each element according to the original master plan, it wouldn't be cobbled. It would be done flawlessly and masterfully, right?
Right.
So I kind of see you saying like, hey, look at the structure of your business differently from the beginning. Even if your structure's not there yet, you're saying, okay, here's my 10-year vision. Great. I'm on year 1, but I know what the 10-year vision is.
Yeah. And it's hard. It's hard to do today because the business landscape and the world is changing so fast that sometimes to even try to comprehend 10 years from now seems like just a ridiculous exercise in nonsense. But you have to, if you can't start seeing it, then you won't even start asking the kind of questions. And it could be around, what are the things that will make my business obsolete? What are the problems that the clients that I likely serve now will want to have solved a year from now or 2 years from now? What kind of business will they still be in? What kind of opportunities will exist for them, and how can I be part of that landscape? You know, just like if you own a restaurant, do you just think of what food you want to serve, or do you want to think about what are the ideal experiences that somebody will show up again and again and again for? Right? Is it because you make the best enchiladas, or is it because you greet them perfectly at the door and you give them an experience that will always keep them curious about what more is coming and what else can be happening and what else can you be showing in different parts of the restaurant that they don't order it today, but they might order it next time because they saw it on display, or they saw the sizzling thing, or they saw the song and dance and the performance, or the table side extravaganza. And you start thinking through, what kind of desserts would they want? What would they want if they wanted to bring their whole family here? What would it take if they wanted to reserve the whole banquet room? And what kind of experience would that be? It's like you have to start thinking about all of that if you want to build the experience that will have your clients starting to think about all of that.
Yeah, because it's very different to build a business that makes just enough money to pay the bills.
Right.
Versus if you want to build a business and you want to build an empire.
Right.
It's a little different ballgame, right? You have to think differently, ask yourself different questions. So what are some of so there's some in the audience who are going to be in more beginner phases, some that are moving towards the scaling, growing stages, right? Yeah. What are some symptoms that they might be experiencing right now that might clue them in that, like, hey, you might want to reevaluate how you're thinking about the structure of your business?
Well, that's a great question. And the symptoms that'll be happening in your business that could be that you're really focusing on either too small of a thought process, you're not thinking far enough out, or you're thinking more transactional in nature. And if it's more directly tied to number one, first and foremost, is if your question set starts with what do I have to do, then you're already starting to think wrong. So don't think what do I have to do. Think what do I need to make sure it gets done. Those are two very different statements. Okay, or questions. What do I have to do says, what is my physical hands, what am I capable of with my knowledge, my expertise, my physical being? What outcome can I affect? What can I ensure gets done? Says I have the entire world at my disposal. I can call Adrienne because she knows something I don't. I can call Kevin Harrington because he can bring something I can't. I can call friend, colleague. I can find a new solution, new technology. I'm not married to any one thing. I could create a whole new invention that solves this thing. Everything is at my disposal. And then you start saying, okay, what is the thing that gives me high value and low cost, right? I can get something with great value and less cost, which oftentimes is a partnership opportunity. If you're starting a business today and you don't even know what products you're offering, offer somebody else's. Who the heck says it has to be yours? Just start selling other people's stuff right now until you figure out the right product suite that you want to be able to jump into and say, oh, I can provide something in the middle of these two that provides the glue between these two experiences. Great, do that, right? So first, immediately stop thinking about what can I do and start thinking about what's the outcome I can affect. Then the second piece is, how is this going to ensure an outcome that pays a result in the future, right? Obviously what you do today is
beyond the initial transaction, like
correct.
there's a whole pathway.
Exactly. Is this going to feed me today or is this going to feed me for a lifetime? Just always be asking those questions. And there's nothing wrong if what you're selling is only going to feed you today. Because you have to eat today. Please eat today. I don't want you to starve. Okay? If that's all you're going to do, then you will forever be in this perpetual cycle of trying to find food for today. And that is once you get rolling, the first time you make sales, that's fantastic. Once you're doing this for a year, now that's horrifying. Because now every single day you have to worry about how do I eat tomorrow. And that is that's a bad place to be. So let's get you moving from the place of, like, if you're in our world, we typically don't talk a lot about how do I make a sale? Because the people who mostly are asking how do I make a sale are typically broke people. And so if I market that way, then I attract broke people. But when we message around what are you doing for exponential growth? How are you building more revenue streams? What are you doing to leverage your teams up? That's what forward-thinking people are thinking about. And so those people are attracted to that message because it's more aspirational in nature. And so think about that when you're messaging people too. Don't speak to somebody who's starving. Speak to somebody who is tired of starving and never wants to starve again. Mm-hmm. Right? That's those are two different people, because everybody who's starving is not in the place of not wanting to starve again. Yeah. Right? They have to be committed to the fact that their problem is real and they're no longer wanting to deal with it. Mm-hmm. Right?
Now or ever again.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. And so that, it's just exponential perspective, and you always have to be thinking about it, even if you're just in the place, and I don't want to use the word just because it doesn't minimize you. If you're in the place where you are the sole operator, meaning you are the chief cook, bottle washer, you have to make the sales, you have to fulfill, you have to do all those things, great, it's a season. Just know it's a season. And even if you're one of those people who might say, I don't want to be a millionaire. I don't want to have $1 million business. I don't want an 8-figure business. I don't want all the headaches and struggles that go with that. Great. I don't want to force anything on you. I just want you to be crystal clear about what is the purpose of your business. Are you doing this because you want to change the world? And do you want to change it for 9 people? Or do you want to change it for 90 people? Or for 9,000 people? Or for 9 million people? And if you have the ability to impact the world at the true level you desire and to be able to be the person that God created you to be, most of the time it's more than 9 or 90. Right? Which means in order to do that, you do have to start thinking more responsibility as a business owner, more fiduciary responsible, like how do I earn more money? How do I save more money? How do I invest more money? How do I do this wisely? And so those are things you'll start working on right from the beginning. Start thinking about that. And I will tell you, for those of you who are already in this conversation, here's a news flash. Running a 7-figure business is easier than running a 6-figure one. And running an 8-figure business is easier than that, right? Because you have more resources, you have more strategy, you have more leverage, you have more impact, you have more credibility, you have more we have more self-worth, because you can look back and go, look what I have created. Look what God has created through me, right? Versus the person who's only sold a handful of things and is still trying to reach that 6-figure mark. Again, nothing wrong with it, but you have a different level of credibility. You're still trying to prove yourself to yourself. So immediately start looking at what can I do to get beyond these measures.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people, anyone who's building a business realizes, oh, this is more work than I at first thought. I haven't met a single person who's like, wow, it was less work than I thought. Like, no, it's a lot of work. And so it's helpful to know that as you are working on that exponential growth, that as you get bigger and bigger, people have this perception that if I get bigger and bigger, it'll get harder and harder. But you're saying actually, because of all the resources and the clout and the expertise and the confidence that you have, and the fact that now you're not the solopreneur trying to do it all, you have teams helping you, you have divisions, you have general managers, it actually gets easier.
Yeah, you're still going to have problems. They're different kind of problems. You still got to be, now it's focusing on people problems and how do I lead people more effectively. And the term new level, new devil is very real. The first time that we created multi-million-dollars was the first time we did it. So then we got to go beyond that. We're like, well, how do I do this now? I've never been here before. And every time you learned, every time you do $1 million in a year, great. Then when it happens when you do $1 million event, and you're like, holy crap, I made $1 million in 3 days. Now what? Or I brought on 500 clients in a weekend. Or if you're somebody who's been selling 1 client at a time, and now all of a sudden you can sell 3 of them, and you're like, dang, how do I do that? Right? I always want you thinking about what is that next challenge, because once you take it on and solve it once, now it's just about dialing it in so that you can solve it for good, right? You can solve it ongoing. And so just always be thinking about, don't think it has to be perfected before you systematize it. Just solve it and then document it, and then it's done. Now, once the fact that you've got it documented, it's a system, it's a process, right? And systems don't have anything to do with technology. You have a system for brushing your teeth, right? So systems are just what we do in sequence, what we do in order. So everything doesn't need to be automated, but everything needs to be documented, so that the goal here is, our world is to replicate you. If it requires you as the founder or some rock star salesperson in order to deliver a product or be able to make the sale happen, then it's broken, because that shouldn't be required. If you have a great offer, something that can be packaged really well, like we're in the middle of doing some strategic days where we're reconstructing people's offers. We're doing them individual and in group, and we want to pull people into an irresistible offer that makes people want what you have so bad. And there's a lot of things that need to happen to make that work, and you need to be thinking about that right from the beginning. How do I position what I do so desirably that people want it, and then pursue me for it? And then when you have all of that in place, it's now you just start figuring out, how do I replicate myself so that that offer can do the work for me. So now I can put an average salesperson who can follow a system and can consistently and predictably overachieve.
Yeah, yeah. Because if the offer is irresistible and the salesperson has a system to follow, it becomes that much easier.
100%. Now you don't need rock star salespeople who are hard to find, hard to keep, hard to retain, hard to manage, hard to lead. I know, because I are one, and it's so much easier to put somebody in place who really appreciates being there and wants to follow the system and wants to do good, valued, hard work. Mm-hmm. Right? Not that there's anything wrong with rock stars. We focus on putting the systems in place that create rock stars instead of trying to go attract one and figure out how to lead one and manage one.
Oh yeah, and I mean, if you break it down in the simplest sense, it's impossible to outsource or delegate an activity that hasn't been systematized, because every step of the way the person's going to say, okay, what's next?
Yes.
What's next? Like you kind of have to.
Yeah. Well, you get the opposite effect, right? If you could attract somebody, I'm the greatest salesperson I've ever met. This guy, I'm going to bring him on. He's awesome. And then you put him in and he goes, okay, what do I do? You're like, go make some sales. And you're like, but where's the offer? And how are these people getting in front of me? And where am I finding them? And how are they showing up here? And what's the prospect journey? What are they seeing? Is there a system that walks them through? Too many times we have what we think is a system, and it's really more than anything, it's an idea. And most salespeople that you hire might be great in a great system, but if left to their own devices, they don't come packing with a system. And we do, right? That's the benefit. We pack a system, we install a system, we install a sales playbook, which becomes your sales operating manual, and then we put salespeople into that system, and then they run. And so I highly recommend you do that same thing. Don't try to solve the problem with talent alone. Solve the problem with your systems, and then start making yourself irreplaceable. If you're saying something like, yeah, I have to be the one to talk to people before they come in, or before I hire them, or before they, whatever, that's the wrong game, because that means something's broken in the process.
Right, because regardless of what revenue threshold you decide you want to grow to, you're still only one person.
Correct.
And unless you want to be working yourself to death, you have to be willing to learn to trust and delegate to other people. And so you're suggesting this kind of division, this idea of divisions.
Right.
The general managers overseeing them. I mean, and I think the minute you say the word division, people assume like huge company.
Right.
It doesn't really have to be huge company kind of division.
No.
Like, talk to us a little bit about, like, with some of the clients you work with and some of the divisions you have in your company.
Sure.
What kind of size and scale are we talking about here when you say division?
So, obviously, we're a multi-million-dollar organization, and we've got a lot going on, and we have things there. And we have clients that are, 7, 8, 9 figures, etc. But I've always run my business this way. So if you're a salesperson, you're in the business of lead generation. You're in the business of running appointments. You're in the business of making offers. You're in the business of working a pipeline and follow-up. And then you also might have this other half of the business where you're delivering and fulfilling on product. Okay? What I would do immediately is separate those all into divisions and then start assigning roles in those divisions. Now, you're probably going to fill all those roles right now, but at least if you've got them identified and targeted, then again, it's just about the reticular activating system. Once you once you've identified it and made it aware, it's now in your conscious, right? And now it's something that is always going to be in your field of vision. So you're like, oh, that, like you talk to a client and they love you and they want to work with you and they're learning some things about them. You're like, you know what? I wonder if this person would want to be a client concierge for me, because that's another role that I need too, right? Because they love what we do. Or you see somebody like, that's amazing, Adrienne would be great. I wonder if she would want to do that for in my appointments division over here, right? And it doesn't mean that this is all going to happen like this. It's just these conversations will never happen if you're not starting the door. You just got to open the door, start the dialogue with yourself, and then you'll start looking for it. And then as you start looking for it, it'll start happening. One of the biggest lessons that I learned, gosh, like 7-8 years ago when we were in our outsourced climbing stage, we were just really coming on the map with all of this, and we were leading sales teams of 50 and 100 people. We had 500 people in our sales network, and I was convinced that nobody could sell like me or nobody could manage salespeople like me. So I had this perspective that said, if all I have to do is, if I can find somebody who can do this half as good as me, we'll be in great shape. Well, guess what we attracted? People who are half as good as me, and that was a shit show. Because you don't want anybody who's half as good as you, right? But the moment I started believing that, I met a woman named Linda who worked for us for a while, for a year plus, a couple of years as our sales leader. And when I first met her, I thought, wow, somebody else can do this the way I can do it. So now I started believing that was a reality, and then I started finding them everywhere. Because
so it started with what you were thinking in your mind.
100%.
And that impacted what you were seeing in the world.
Correct. So because I was fully convinced that nobody could do this but me, or do it the way I was doing it, so I limited myself and my opportunities. The moment I embraced the opportunity, the possibility that someone else could do it, I started attracting them everywhere. And so now one of the greatest skill sets that Cindy and I possess in this business is the ability to attract amazing humans into our world. That's probably the greatest gift God has given me. And that's team, it's clients, it's partners, it's you, I'm amazed at the level of human beings that I come across every day.
Right. Simply because you're open to it, your mind is constantly open to, like, what amazing people am I going to meet?
100%.
And therefore you need amazing people.
Yep.
Isn't that something? So as you're building out these divisions, it could be in the beginning you're a solopreneur and you're wearing 20 hats. You're the VA, you're the graphic designer, you're the virtual assistant, you're
Yes.
you're the copywriter, you're the all the things. But at least you recognize it's 20 separate hats. And the minute you're able to kind of section them into the divisions, and the minute you're able to hire one, you could have a division of 1.
Correct.
And then a division of 2. And
Totally.
Like, you can start small.
Yep.
But you're thinking of this structure ahead of time in your mind.
Yeah, and this is an area where I definitely think different than most people. Most people will say, okay, build something out, get profitable. Out of profit, hire a team. I've always been the opposite. The moment I see, as a visionary, I can see something happening, I'm like, oh, this is going to work great. Then it's how fast can I get somebody in place who can help run it. And sometimes that running just means running alongside of me. But I also know my limitations. And I don't want, if I have to be the one to power it and build it, it's not going to go anywhere, because I'm already focused on too many other things. And so this allows me to keep focusing on where we're going while the people I put in place focus on getting it there. Right? So what I recommend for you is immediately look for a personal assistant and or a VA, an administrative assistant for business. Personal assistant is somebody who manages your life. I highly recommend you have one. Get somebody who's going to do your shopping, go take your dry cleaning, just run the errands, go to the post office, UPS store, all of that stuff. So your valuable time is not, you can easily pay somebody else far less than you can pay yourself to have to go take time out of your workday to go do that stuff. So find that in place, then find yourself a VA to help run your business. Get to a VA, then get to a place when you have more volume where you can have an executive assistant. But here's the thinking. Most people go, well, yeah, that's going to cost me $10 or $20 an hour or 15, whatever that number is going to be, and I don't have that yet. Get it fast as you can. So you can say, okay, I'm going to make $5,000 a month because I'm going to sell 5 programs at $1,000. That's extremely small, and if I was working with you, you would never be selling that like that. However, but let's just say you're going to do that, and you say, okay, and then I'm going to need $1,500 to be able to hire an assistant. So as soon as I hire to $6,500, then I'll be able to do that. The way I say this is, let's get your first $1,500 to pay for your assistant. So that way you know it's covered. So now you go out and make 1.5 sales, that pays for your assistant. You make another 1.5 sales, that pays for your personal assistant. Now that's covered. Now you go make 5 sales that cover your bills or raise your
Because
prices
now
and do
your
something more
time,
effective.
your expertise is freed up. Because
Correct.
you're not doing all those admin tasks, you
Correct.
can go find your clients.
And so what happens is it takes you a little bit longer to reach profit, but you're in profit for a long time. Versus trying to do it on your own, it can take you forever to get into profit because you're the one trying to move all this stuff, right? I did this one time. I had this mental breakdown one time with Cindy. We're at a restaurant, and there was all these condiments on the table. There's salt and pepper and Parmesan cheese and sugar and all this stuff. And I was exhausted because I felt like we were trying to move everything. I said this. I was looking at it and it just made sense for the first time. I had this little visual, and I moved the salt. This is what we did today. We moved the salt 2 inches. And then, you know what we did yesterday? We moved the pepper 1 inch. And then yesterday the sugar went back 4 inches. And then the Parmesan cheese went forward. But at the end of the day, it didn't look any different than it did the day before. And you know what we've been doing now? Is our whole team is working on, everybody's working on issues. So today, the salt moves forward 6 inches. The pepper moves forward a foot. The sugar moves forward. Why? Because they all have somebody who's initially focused on them as their primary responsibility. And they're all going on it. Or we take the whole team or the whole division and focus on one initiative so it moves lightning speed because everybody's focused on it. But when you're trying to be the one who's moving everything 1 inch at a time, you're never gonna get there, and you're gonna kill yourself. And your brain's gonna explode because you're gonna quit because you're gonna see no results of your effort, no fruits of your labor, and you will always be frustrated and feel like you're not getting anywhere.
Because you're nickel and diming yourself to death and you have no leverage.
Completely.
Yeah, and that's like the slowest moving.
Yeah.
So do you have some examples or some stories you want to share of clients you worked with or launches you helped on where you leveraged this consultant advised model and what kind of results came out of that?
Oh yeah. Well, working in launches, first I'll give you a big example. With a multi-million-dollar client and campaign, they're getting ready to do what ended up being a $2.7 million event, and everybody's focusing on how we build this event. It's like, well, we're not building the event, we're building components that lead to an event. So once we have all of our systems that break that out, and then it's okay, who's going to be in charge of the messaging, who's going to be in charge of the graphics, who's going to be in charge of filling the room, who's going to be in charge of making sure that everything we talk about in the offer gets actually implemented and put in place, who's going to be in charge, right? Everybody's got a role to play, and some people might play multiple roles, but once you put that in place, then we are partnering with them, and we specifically take on the role of consultant advise in that capacity, and we teach the leader. So the person who's the leader of, okay, I'm going to oversee the marketing team, then they are now in consultant advise, and then everybody is moving, but they're moving at the direction of that everybody's on the same page with the consultant advise piece. And here's the thing that you want to think about is with that, what I always say is put your hands in your pockets. So like right now, Adrienne, put your hands in your pockets. And everybody listen, put your hands in your pockets. Now, write an email. How would you write an email? Yeah, how would you write an email with your hands in your pockets? How would you reach out to somebody and have a conversation with your hands in your pockets? How would you build a web page with your hands in your pockets?
Not
You would have,
well, that's for sure.
you would have to ask great questions of other people, right? So the moment you do this, just put yourself in that situation. So that every time you're going to start the next project you're going to take on, put your hands in your pockets and say, now how do I accomplish this? Okay?
You have to rely on other people.
100%. Because but it puts you're going to be more creative because you're trying to overcome that challenge. The moment you bring your little alligator paws out, right, or little T-Rex limbs, which usually can't reach stuff, that's why I call them T-Rex limbs, because your arms are not ever long enough to reach all the things you need to reach, right?
Never. They never are.
But you try like hell. And it's like, why are we doing that? Why do we kill ourselves that way? Stop it. Get everything else engaged, and then you jump into the thing that requires you, instead of starting with you on everything. Because then if you're you on everything, then the stuff that requires you, there's nothing left of you to give to make that happen. Okay? So in a bigger company, that is easier because there's more resources and more team. But when it's you can be like, Joanne, who's one of our, ideal clients in our, 6-figure realm, and she's a team of one. She had an assistant. And we got, keep her focused right on early phases on leveraging that assistant to much as possible. Now, here's the part that gets difficult. It's like, Jim, it takes too long for me to teach this person I could do it in an hour. I could spend a whole day teaching her. It's more effective for me to just do it. Yes, transactional thinking, that is the shorter way to do it. But think about this. If you say, okay, it takes me an hour, but what if I spend 2 hours teaching her how to do it? And then the next time, it only takes an hour and a half for me to oversee it. The next time, it only takes an hour. And then by the fourth time, it takes her 30 minutes. So now I'm actually saving time. And I'm fine leveraging myself. Right? But it's got to start. You're just going to have to put in the work and roll up your sleeves to get it done. Just knowing that this is a future value transaction. This is not, here's, write this down. Everybody write this down. And I share this with my team all the time. The biggest problem with salespeople in general, but I would say business people across the board, is we value our time way too much. Everybody who says, you can't spend your time on this stuff and that. Here's the message, write this down. Most of you are valuing the ROI of your time and measuring it with a stopwatch. The people who win are the people who measure the ROI of their time with a calendar. Do not measure the ROI of your time stopwatch, because you are almost never going to get the greatest amount of value from what you're doing today. But you run around making all your decisions as if that's the case. Difference between me and most people is I go, okay, cool. When is that going to pay off? So how can I look further down the road to gain the
Sometimes
outcome?
the payoff is a week away, a month away, a year away.
And yeah,
But it's worth putting in the time to start reaping all those benefits.
totally. But you have to, again, it starts with that mindset. You have to be thinking about it. So don't measure the ROI of your time with a stopwatch. Start measuring it with a calendar. And you will see immediately your results will become more exponential and more increased because you're willing to do more on the front end. Usually if it's transactional, it not only does it cut off the amount of the result you're going to get today, it cuts off what you're willing to put in to get that result. Because you're, I already put in 3 hours in this thing, I'm not going to do it. Dude, what if you put in a week in it, but then for the next year it produces revenue for you?
And for the next year, you get to be hands off.
Yeah. It's like, come on, man, we can do better. We can do
How
better.
much time is that saving you longer term?
Totally.
Yeah. So this larger client, you helped them have a $2.7 million launch.
Correct.
And the smaller client, the six-figure client, what was the result of working with her?
So yeah, so she came to us, Joanne, and at first her immediate goal, like everybody else, is I want $10,000 months, consistent $10,000 months. And so we just immediately, and in addition to putting some sales strategy and offers in place, but thinking wiser about how she's moving through this process. In her second month, she had $16,000 month, followed by a $24,000 month, followed by another $20,000 month. She ended up with a $92,000 month. Now $20K is her average, her target monthly. $10K is the floor. If she doesn't have a $10,000 month, she's failed in her mind, right?
Yeah.
But it's because she has leverage. She's got on a cadence of activities that are leveraged and managed, so that she is doing the things that require her value, and not all of the other things. Right?
She's
So it's having the right
consolidating
strategy.
the
Yes.
time of the team.
Yes, exactly. It's like consult and advise what the team is doing. And then, and again, you're part of the team. If you put your wheel, we call it a wheel of woes, because that's what most people are in. They want to change it to the wheel of roles. And if you've got 27 roles in your company, you're probably playing 22 of them. So don't, and that's fine, but bottom line is now they're identified. Now you can easily identify when somebody else should be taking them, because all roles are not created equally, and all activities are not created equally. So you want to make sure you're taking on the roles or oversee. I'm going to encourage you as much as I can. Don't do any of this if you don't have to. If you can just put your brain on it to impact it, to move, you're going to win.
To oversee it and to guide it, but to
Correct.
not do the nitty-gritty work yourself.
Correct.
but
Right from the
help
beginning.
someone else.
Right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Right? Because it'll pay off for you. And like I said, you might say, "Oh, this is what I don't have the money to do that." I will tell you that if you don't do it, you'll never have the money to do it.
Correct. And I tell people all the time, you have to invest first, earn second.
Yep.
Like, it's just the way it works. You invest in the skills to leverage the skills. You invest in the team to leverage the output of the team. Like, it's just the way of the world. It's just
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
it's not a rich person's game, guys. This is how you become rich.
Right. Like, think differently first.
Yep.
Translate that to your actions into leverage, and then the money will come. So I know there's lots of people watching and thinking, okay, I'm gonna flip my thinking. I'm gonna try what he said. I'm going to invest first in getting some help or expanding my team, expanding my help, expanding my systems
Yes.
so that I can bring more in shorter term because I'm opening up more of my valuable time. So, but to do that, and I think the example you gave was perfect, get just enough sales in the door to kind of pay for a month's worth of those people's time, right? So you're like planning ahead, you're paying it ahead basically.
Right.
And then you can repurpose your time to bringing in, so they're realizing like, okay, I just need a handful more sales. And I know sales is one of your expertise areas, obviously. So, and I also know you have a free gift for the audience to help them bring in more sales and to get more closes. Do you want to tell us about that?
I do. I'm really excited about this. I created it on accident. This gift that we're giving you was created in the middle of an interview because somebody was asking these things. I was like, no, yeah, we can do this, and so I just kind of created it on the fly. But now I love it. I share it. This is like my number one go-to. It is called our anti-closer sales system, and it's based on the framework that, or the philosophy that you don't want to go hire a closer. We want to create a system that can deliver a closer. That is what you want. And so it's really, it's helping you get dialed in on what is your clear offer, what's the prospect journey, what is the bleeding neck problem, not just the kind of sort of problem they have, but a bleeding neck problem that actually compels people to move forward. Understanding their core story, understanding what's at stake for them, right? And being able to put it all in place in a simple system. Now, is this is this going to give you the results that we can get? Probably not. But it's going to get you a head start on this path. It's going to get you start thinking in how can I put structure. Here's the difference. Again, there's some other offers we have too, but the whole focus on this is: do you want to become better at selling, or do you want to create your world in such a way that so the sales happen? I prefer the latter, and I'm the sales expert. I'm a sales guy. I don't want to get better at selling. I want to get better at structuring my world in such a way that sales happen. Because that's the life I live, and that's what I want you to be able to live. And it's all centered around putting a system in place that's not designed to put a closer in place, and it's designed to replicate you and get you out of the way.
Oh, I love it. So you guys, this is the easy button. I mean, there really are no easy buttons in business, but this is about as close as it gets. Okay, if you're realizing that this conversation is really what you needed to hear, you need to start thinking differently, right? And acting and behaving differently, creating more leverage. Scoop up this free gift. It's going to be huge and instrumental in helping you to create that leverage. And I know you also have a VIP gift for anyone here who's a VIP ticket holder. And if you're not yet, what are you doing? Grab that VIP ticket. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your VIP gift?
I do, and you guys absolutely, whatever the cost is for the VIP ticket, you're going to get it back in spades, because I know that all the other experts are putting together some really cool stuff that's going to deliver you a powerful ROI. So the two things we created what we call the bundle here, and it's basically the ultimate sales bundle, and it's based on two things. One is our Leads Made Easy program, which is something we do as a live challenge a few times a year, and it's literally hands down without question the program that we get the most feedback and input on. A lot of our clients teach this as their own concept to their clients, but it's basically the difference between who you're serving and when you're serving them. And we have zeroed in on really mastering the when of the process, so that what's the trigger event that they have that helps them get growing exponentially in the need and the problem that you solve. So that way you're not trying to search out there for everybody. You want to find the people who are in the right stage of readiness, need, and desire for what you have, so that they're much more bought into the conversation when they show up. Okay, so Leads Made Easy program, you absolutely want that. Game changer for sure. And then the other part of the bundle is our 10 moves to make more sales. And here's the key: 10 moves to make more sales without getting better at selling. Like I said, raise your hand if you want to make more sales. Everybody should have all their hands up. Raise your hand if you want to spend all the time, effort, energy, and resources to get better at selling. Nobody, unless you're a nut, right? Who does that? So 10 moves to make more sales is literally everything that I did and do to create our world in such a way that people show up wanting to buy. As an example, tell the truth. You don't have to get better at selling to learn how to tell the truth all the time, unapologetically, right? Yeah. Be clear about what's at stake for your clients. Meaning, if I know that if you came to me, Adrienne, and said, I'm struggling my husband is just, he's getting physical, he's you know, and I'm like, whoa, what's going on? That's really intense. And then you go, you know, I'm gonna wait till next year to do something about it. And you're like, you're crazy. We're putting you in the car right now. We're gonna go and move you out today, right? We're gonna solve this problem because I care about you. Well, I want you to take that same level of seriousness and tenacity to your clients, because the problems you solve for them are real and they matter. Okay, so you have to be clear about what's at stake so that you don't let them convince themselves to stay in pain longer, right? So, and that's just one of the 10 moves to make more sales. So really awesome bunch of quick hitters that you know, basically it's like 60-second videos and quick concepts that will help you embed these 10 moves to make more sales without getting better at selling.
I love it.
It all starts in here. All
Yes.
starts in here.
When you're thinking differently and you're asking different questions, you're simply attracting different outcomes. I mean, I see it all the time. So you guys grab that VIP gift, and all of these VIP gifts, you guys, these are things that all the speakers normally charge big bucks for. And they've just contributed to this bundle to make sure that you have an amazing experience, that you get the absolute most out of this, that you get a major mindset shift, that you get real results. And so if you wanted to go out and purchase all these things individually, you're spending 10 times more than what we're asking for the VIP ticket. And that's just, it's a gift of abundance from the speakers too. So scoop that up, make the most of that, get a major shift in your business. And if this blew your mind, you have other questions, you want to dig in deeper, there will be an opportunity to do that, to connect with the speakers in the Facebook group, to ask questions. You can reply to any of the emails, let us know what questions you have. We'll make sure you get them answered. And Jim, thank you so much for being with us today. This was amazing, and hopefully the light bulb went off for quite a few people.
Yeah, thanks for trusting me to be part of your success team.
All right. Well, with that, you guys, we'll see you on the flip side. Bye for now.
Recording
Oh, that
stopped.
was great. They're gonna love it.
Good. And it's different. I didn't want to just talk about sales training, different stuff that they can get anywhere else. So I'm trying to bring a perspective that they're probably not hearing every day.
Yeah, totally different, and I love it. And there's always a mix of experience levels at these events, you know. So I love that we kind of talked about a range of examples of people at different phases, and they're gonna love that.
Awesome. All right, well, let's continue the conversation. I definitely want to see how we can continue to do some work together and how I can help you.
Yeah,
And,
and I'll see you in the next Premier Partners.
Okay, yeah, coming up. Perfect.
Awesome.